Wow.
Cool. So,
Good afternoon.
cheers to number 3.
To number 3 on a sunny afternoon.
Yeah.
Cheers.
So, we were thinking the last time after we had our chat to maybe start doing a little bit more technical things, but without like necessarily losing the focus of whoever's watching, because things can get too complicated and too technical and then no one wants to hear that. So
Right.
we thought of, okay, well, we've built on, why Swiss watchmaking is important. We've touched on things we would like clients and retailers and, authorized dealers, etc., to know about the watches.
Correct.
And one of the big things that, they should know, and especially in terms of timekeeping standards and stuff, is concepts such as rate,
Right.
amplitudes,
Yep.
all of these kinds of things, the consumption when it comes to a quartz watch.
Right.
And this all fits into that greater ambit of, one of them being COSC certifications, but mainly just chronometer certifications, right? Let's maybe just dive into that for today. So firstly, what is a chronometer? Or in terms of the standards, why do we have to get it chronometer certified?
Right. So history of time. Watches and clocks in the old days used to be pretty inaccurate. And it wasn't until the 1700s when ships' clocks were made accurate enough to within 3 seconds a day, so that they could then be used as, today we have satellites, but to pinpoint positioning on longitude and latitude, but actually longitude in this case. Before that, there was no way of fixing. They could fix the position of the yacht latitudinally, but not longitudinally, and it was a very big problem. It was in the 1700s when a British captain sailed his entire fleet into the Scilly Isles, sinking the entire fleet, killing all of them, and he actually, the captain himself, survived it, but he was murdered on the beach. When he got washed up on the beach, a person who was scavenging around found him, clocked him on the head, and stole his rings and all his bits and pieces. And on her deathbed, she confessed to the priests what she had done. Because of that, then it was very important for clocks and timekeepers to become very accurate.
So safe to say they didn't have an accurate timepiece.
They didn't have.
That's why she also only stole the jewelry and not the clock, because it wouldn't have served much of a purpose.
In fact, they didn't have a clock on those ones.
Yeah.
They just
it was guesswork.
It was
basically.
guesswork. It was guesswork.
Yeah.
And so that's why, and this is how timekeeping it started getting more and more accurate.
Yeah.
And then
now, how do we refine that? So, that's the broader picture of why the necessity for timekeeping arose. I mean, timekeeping's been necessary for most of humankind's existence. Whether you use that on a lunar cycle level or whether you use it now with devices, with racing, especially within racing, like track racing or anything like that, there's always a timing element involved.
Yeah.
But now, specifically chronometer certifications, why is that a word we see on Swiss watches specifically a lot?
Right. So because of the accuracy, so it all sort of started, it started in America when two trains collided. Somebody's pocket watch stopped working, or it missed actually a few seconds or minutes, and all of a sudden these two trains were on head-on collision when they should have actually, one had been parked, and they ended up colliding, killing people. Then from that moment on, now COSC is it stands for the Control Official Swiss. What happens is, if you come up with a watch, or if you design a watch, every Tudor, Rolex, Breitling, they all send their watches into the COSC, who govern the accuracy of these watches. So when it comes to a mechanical watch,
it's like the licensing department for your watch movement.
Correct. correct. It just goes to show that it is a accurate timepiece, and it gets the COSC actually take the watch for about 15 days. They subject it to different temperatures, and of course all the different positions, so that when you can the forces of gravity, that's one big problem. And they tumble these watches for 15 days, which
basically replicating sort of the hand movement,
exactly.
Which is what the very machines that we still currently use to test,
right.
well, chronometer test / amplitude rate
right.
test mechanical watches on,
right.
resembles the degrees and movement of a wrist.
Right. So in that, it's a case of it's the dial up, it's the dial down of the watch.
Yeah.
It's the crown left, crown right, crown up, and crown down. So those are the 6 positions.
Now, why is that important? Because, someone might say, oh, but this seems so arbitrary, I've got a watch, I get it's mechanical, but you're not, taking my car after I've serviced it. I keep using the car analogy because I think it's something people can easily tie to the necessity of service for function.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not taking your car after it's been serviced, chasing it up to 120 kilometers an hour, back down to 0, going up a hill, going down a hill, off-road, on-road, to just test its durability and standards or performance. But with a watch, this is necessary.
Well, it is necessary. A couple of reasons why is because a watch goes 5 years between services. It can run continually for 5 years between the services. You theoretically shouldn't be really even touching it at least you can adjust it daily if you really want to. But I mean, most people don't. It must be a reliable wrist device for timekeeping, and this is exactly why. And all these tests, they check the parameters of the watch. Our machines tumble the watch as well in 6 different positions, and we set all our watches on our mechanical watches from 0 to +6 a day.
Yeah, which is actually, if you take the average, more accurate than even the COSC's standard testing measurement, because that's between -4 seconds a day and +6 seconds a day.
Yes, -3 seconds to +6 seconds a day, something like that. Yeah. And then, we do that because you never want to be late for an appointment. So if you are
you'd rather be gaining time.
You'd rather be gaining time. Early. You're early. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's anyway within the factory parameters.
Right.
Now that's COSC's normal testing, and there's so many different. There's a few other companies like Metas who does the coaxials with Omega, and there's a few others that's like between the parameters of 2+5. Sorry.
Right.
But COSC in and of itself has got its standard testing. Then I also read that there's this thing called COSC Excellence, which is the standard that they use, which has just been refined to like -2 to +4 seconds a day. So that gap sort of decreased by 2 to 4 marginal points.
Right.
And that process, because usually I think we missed touching on this when you said the watches get sent to COSC. It's actually the movements get sent to COSC.
Correct.
Under the standard testing.
Yes.
With this Excellence, I read that it does the 15-day testing like the other movements, but then an additional 6 days, which takes it up to 21, it's tested in its case. So it's cased up basically like the timepiece you'd have right here without the strap, but it's tested like it would basically on someone's wrist. It's more realistic testing.
Right.
And there's more temperature control. There's also there's this other thing, I don't know if you're familiar with it. I can't get to the name now, but they tested specific gravital things and then also pressure. There's a certain pressure tester that goes through that the standard testing doesn't. I'm not too affair with all of that, but taking it from standard testing to this excellence testing basically means that your watch is just a more accurate timekeeper.
Correct.
Now, why do those margins matter? Because even within that parameter of say -4 to +6 seconds a day, you can reasonably guess that it's going to be a pretty good timekeeper. You're sitting at about +1 second a day average in that gap.
Right.
But why has that been the acceptable standard, and why is the standard, or why is there the need to refine that standard?
Right. Well, I think it's just to narrow down the accuracy for where and how those watches are being worn. It's a case of when you're timing an event, they're critical. All of this now has sort of fallen away for things like the quartz watches, because they have become super accurate. So and then from quartz we use atomic time to set satellites, so which is even more accurate. So basically it is just to keep a standard, and in a way as well you can tell the workmanship of the Swiss movements are just so refined. You're going to get these really good results. The other sort of manufacturers, you don't. They don't have those sort of requirements.
And also they don't have that to be accountable to.
No.
So if something goes wrong with that timepiece or that movement or whatever, they can say, okay, well look, this isn't within the parameters, or there is no parameter to which we tested. So you can't say, oh, it's a manufacturer fault, or oh, it's a testing fault, because we didn't claim to hold it between -2 to +4 seconds.
Right.
You know?
It's checks and balances, basically, and it's to hold accountability.
Yeah. Now, why do you think the Swiss, well, actually, it's probably quite a stupid question, because I was going to say, why do you think the Swiss are so adamant to have this be the case with their movements? Why do they have to go under these rigorous testing? So, well, ultimately, it's to uphold the name that they've created for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, dealing with that, because I find it like it's hard to get something like this across to people, because, you think like now we're really getting into the smaller or the finer details. To be honest, like the average person probably doesn't care that it's keeping +3 seconds a day.
No.
But if someone comes in to you and they say, well, look, my watch is gaining time, but it's maybe gaining +6 seconds a day, which is still just on that edge of the acceptable parameter.
Right.
And you put it on the test and it kicks out +6 seconds. Let's say they sort of guessed it's gaining around that, and it is.
Right.
And you send it back and you say, well, this is still within spec. But then people are like, but I don't understand why my watch is gaining a few minutes a week.
Right. So this is why we need to address these issues. Because firstly, when the time and the time rate gets set, we set it to within factory specifications. When the customer takes it back, they normally put the watch down in a particular position and leave it there for like overnight. And overnight, it might run for, say, 10 seconds in that one position. So my whole advice is, when you are monitoring a watch, first of all, make sure you keep a standard to which you're monitoring it to, i.e. your cell phone time. Don't use another mechanical watch or mechanical clock, because that also could be gaining or losing time.
Yeah, so you keep setting it to an incorrect timekeeper.
Yeah, you're now adjusting it to an incorrect timekeeper, and so keep it a standard. So keep it to your cell phone time.
And best case is you actually download an app or go onto Google and do world time.
Correct.
Like
correct.
So atomic time. Yeah, because that connects to the satellite system as well as...
Atomic time that we've downloaded even tells you how many milliseconds that your cell phone's out.
Yes.
So
even electronic devices, it catches in that slight inconsistency.
Correct. Now, when it comes to positioning, satellite positioning and what have you, you need absolutely perfect time, and that is governed by, say, atomic time.
Yeah.
So our cell phones are very, very accurate. They're self-adjusting. So monitor your watch to that, and monitor it in dial up, dial down, and all the different positions. Like most people would leave, say, their watch on its side with the crown up.
Yeah.
Move it around and move it down, and so monitor it so that you can get an overall average of how this watch is performing.
Yeah, because for me, it's a perfect example, and I think this is actually the case with most people. Get home, take the watch off. Here it is. Put it either on the bedside table or on the dresser. It's lying flat, face up. Yeah. Hopefully, because I wouldn't just rest it on the crystal. It's a bit bad. you know, like it's not ideal, you're going to scratch it. Rest it like that. But if I'm wearing a quartz or a smartwatch or a something else during the rest of the week, now I get to Friday, I pick this thing up, I'm like, it's completely stopped.
Yeah.
But I know that, hang on, it should have been keeping time or what have you, and it's been serviced, it's an accurate timekeeper. Now it's stopped. In fact, it hasn't just been gaining time, it's just completely stopped. Or it hasn't been losing time, it's completely stopped. That's the previous discussion we had about winding
the watch.
Now,
so
if I were to
that
wind that and leave it at that point, it's also not going to remain an accurate timekeeper because it's not being tested, so to speak,
in different
its
positions.
Natural form.
Correct.
Basically.
Correct. So on that note, there's only a couple of times that your watch will gain time, lose time, and then once it's been fully wound and worn, it will keep those plus 6 seconds a day, 0 to 6 seconds a day, but all in different positions. The one time it loses time is when the customer puts the watch on, it hasn't been fully wound, and it just has no amplitude to drive this watch. Then this poor watch is trying, the balance is trying to keep up, and it's going, instead of beating at 28,000 beats per minute, this thing is like slowly going backwards and forwards. You're going to lose time.
Yeah.
So that's because the watch hasn't been wound.
Basically, the same concept as a heartbeat.
Basically, yeah. So now, secondly, the watch will gain time. One of the major problems, I mean, I can now attest to it, is that this little device that I got is held onto my coat with a magnet.
Yes.
Everything, our little headphones that we wear, the clocks beside our beds, they all have magnetic forces in them. And what happens is that magnetic force charges the little balance spring, and it makes it magnetic. And every time that little balance goes backwards and forwards, the spring pulses and opens and closes. And what happens is it sticks to each other, which then speeds that whole process up. So you can see it on our timing machines. You can see the thing sort of starts flickering madly. And that then gains time. All you need then is, if it all of a sudden you're gaining 160 odd seconds a day and more sometimes, bring it in. We put it through the demagnetizer. It is such a simple thing. We put it in the demagnetizer, pull it out again, put it back on the timing machine, and you're spot on again.
Yeah. So what, I mean, because there's so many things or objects in our day-to-day life now, especially with tech and with modernization of all equipment, like, how do I prevent my watch from being magnetized? Because it seems like an impossible task now.
It almost is. I mean, and the certain machines, the medical machines.
Yeah,
we had a radiographer whose poor old quartz movements go wild near magnetic fields. And if you put it anywhere near our demagnetizer for mechanical watches, these hands just want to, they freak out.
Yeah.
So, and this is exactly what was happening there. Even a quartz movement, it's a little magnet rotor that is rotating, and as soon as you put it near a magnetic field, it just goes wild. So that's the accuracy.
So are quartz watches easier to magnetize than mechanical ones?
Not easier to magnetize, but what happens is the little magnet inside gets affected as well by big magnetic forces.
Okay.
So you'll see that that can be. So coming back to now, so your standard mechanical watch is 0 to 6 seconds a day accuracy, but in all different positions. It might gain a little bit here, it might lose a little bit there, but an overall average. And how we do it is you take a reading for dial up and dial down. We take those two readings. We take an average of those readings. Then we have all the other four. We have the crown up, the crown down, crown left, crown right. We take an average of those two, add those together, and we get what we call a delta. And that delta must be 0 to 6 seconds a day.
That's what we go on, which is actually slightly better than the COSC standard.
Correct.
The normal, I say COSC standard, not the standard COSC. It's called COSC standard and not COSC excellence.
Correct.
But yes, basically that.
Then we get to quartz movement watches.
Yes.
Now you get to the standard quartz. Now there's no real way for the customer to check the rate of that watch, especially not daily, because our machines are specialized enough to pick up 0.3 seconds a day is what an average quartz movement watch will gain. The reason why it gains is because the quartz crystal inside that watch is so temperature sensitive that any fluctuation of heat, it will start pulsing quicker. It normally beats at 33,000 hertz. It will start increasing a little bit, which will make your watch run a little bit fast. But so it's 0.3 seconds a day, and that doesn't worry about whichever position it's in, because it's not as sensitive to gravity as a mechanical watch is. And most of the time, one of the critical things on a mechanical watch, sorry to jump back to that, but your dial, your crown is in a downward position as you're walking. And that's when the biggest pull on gravity is. So that's where Breguet in 1801, he came up with the Tourbillon, which is a rotating cage, so it rotates your balance.
So it defies gravity regardless of where you are.
Whatever position you're in and whatever you're doing, this thing is going around in a circle with your little...
it can be in any position.
In any position, and it takes an overall sort of average of that.
So in that sense, it should be a more accurate timekeeper.
Well, yes, it should be. And usually. It is, yes. Then you've got, back to your quartz, it's 0.3 seconds a day, but then you get your super quartzes, and you have your COSC certifications for your quartz and your super quartzes as well. And your super quartzes are 0.04 seconds a day. So these are fiendishly accurate.
Yeah, you're not going to be losing time, basically.
No, you're not. In fact, quartz watches
the battery will die
time
before the watch really gains enough time for you to notice.
Correct.
And if it is, then there's clearly a problem with either the internals or the battery itself, which is dying.
Yeah. So we have machines that are satellite governed, that download perfect time into the machine, and we download that back into watches. The B50s that we have other machines for that, but it's the same principle.
Yeah.
So
okay. And that's now certifications within the quartz / mechanical and automatic watches. Maybe run through 3 concepts, because these are concepts that clients will potentially get feedback on when we either quote them, or wherever they go and they deal with watch repairs, they'll hear of 3 things. When it's a mechanical watch, they'll hear of 2. That's amplitudes and rate.
And
so
then,
let's start with what that is first, and then after that touch on what consumption is in the quartz watch world.
Right. So amplitudes and rate. Your rate is how much it's gaining and losing per second, per minute. That's the seconds. So that's your rate. Your amplitudes are the machines record how many degrees your balance rotates. Now it can't do a 360 degree because this poor thing is the hair is being held either end, sort of one on the balance and one on the actual.
So technically, the most it could go to is 359.
Yeah, well, yes,
which is basically at breaking point.
Correct, and so it'll wind on itself, and what happens is, and then it winds backwards, and the machine detects exactly when the impulse roller engages with your pallet fork. It hears that, and then it listens to it, it disappears for a while, and then suddenly it hits again. And it can work out in that revolution exactly how many degrees it's rotating. If your watch needs a service, your degrees go down. So your optimum is around about 320 to 300 degrees of turn. your when you start getting your 250 is your where anyway once you're serviced, your worst position rate, your amplitudes do go down. I'm not going to even get into the physics of why it does, but the worst position we can allow, because in each 6 positions we also check your amplitude in every single
of
every single one of them. So your worst one is 250, but we get the older watches coming in where the oil, the lubrications run dry. And now we're just talking of normal wear and tear for a watch where the lubrication's running dry. It's just a metal pivot into a jewel going backwards and forwards. The friction's too much, so the power's not getting all the way to the balance. So you're not going to get those degrees of amplitude anymore. Okay, so that's the rate, and that is the amplitude. Then you have the rate and consumption of a quartz. The rate's the same thing.
Yes.
The consumption it's the same as consuming. So how much of the mechanical part of your quartz watch, being the gears that run and drive your little stepper motor, that drives your gears, that drives your second wheels, your minute wheels, your hour wheel, all these can put up friction if they start running dry as well.
It's about like how much power does it consume
from the battery
in order to run accurate.
So our machines, we basically put in the same amount of power that a normal watch battery would put in, and it sees and looks and sees how much it's being drawn from the battery, and it can say, whoa, okay, this is not going to last 6 months. This is not going to last what your standard 1.5 to 2 years for a battery. It's going to flatten your battery much sooner than that. The only way of getting rid of bad consumption is by servicing the watch. You strip it down, you clean everything, you re-lubricate all the pivots. In the old days, they never used to lubricate the pivots. We do, and lubricate the jewels. And it gives the watch longevity. Some quartz watches go into 10 years or so of good service, but you will find that if your battery is running out sooner, it needs a service, and there's no way you can just switch a switch and
especially not with the quartz, with a mechanical timepiece, much like many other mechanical instruments, there's always things to potentially tweak before you have to say, listen, it needs the full package. But with electronics, you sort of stuck.
No.
It's a lot more black and white in that sense.
Correct.
There's not so much grey area or grey matter to play around
Correct. With. And so we've got machines that adjust the rate, but it's manual labor to adjust your consumption by cleaning it out and re-lubricating it. And I mean, some of these watches are fiendishly complicated. We have Rattrapant quartz watches that and some of the older models are very complex. There's a lot of mechanics and the electronics driving the mechanics. And then, so that is critical to keep those serviced. And then you get your normal chronograph watch, which you've got all your tenths of second counters, you've got your hour counter, you've got your second counter, you've got your minute counters.
Something like your Tag Heuer F1 Chrono, for example.
Same story.
Something like that.
Yeah, exactly that.
And that's driving what otherwise would have been a mechanical chronograph, but it's just on an electronic
and that's
model.
a 1.55 volt battery. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, these things are tiny little cells.
Yeah, and they last so long. So actually, in that sense, if you think about how many times you have to replace your television remote battery, albeit okay, they're designed for different purposes.
And it's not running 24 hours a day.
Yeah, and we don't complain about doing something like that, although sometimes we do. But, with a watch where a battery could last, I mean, that little quartz of mine, mean, that's a super quartz, right?
That is
the bright and cold Sky Racer.
Correct.
So that one,
but that has a 3 volt lithium battery in it.
But now I got that one for my 18th birthday.
Yeah.
I'm 27 now. It's never been replaced.
Correct.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because most quartzes literally take 2 to 5 years max. But I mean, this has been almost 10.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of another time as well. I had a customer in
Yeah.
as well, and it is.
It's been worn well,
amazing.
you know, but I mean,
Well, no, because
even so,
that's
it's
not
just
really
the battery.
even governed. Yeah. Oh, and that on that note as well, there is a assumption that if you pull the crown out, it stops it all. Yes, it does, but be warned. A battery, I'm going to liken it to a bottle of Coke. The moment you open the seal on that Coke bottle and you pour yourself your glass of Coke and you put the back on and you put it away in the cupboard or in the fridge, 3 days later you go back, there is no gas left in there.
The carbonation's gone.
So the moment you put a new battery into a movement, it sort of breaks that seal.
Yeah.
And it does run down on its own, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, you can't just take it out and say in 2 years I've put it back in, why is it not charging?
You've started that whole process going. And then so you can pull the crown out and that's fine. Push it back in. You can do that for a while. But my big concern is those people who pull the crown out, they leave it in their safe. 10 years later, they suddenly realize they've got a watch there with a battery that is just disgusting. And it floods your entire watch full of acid and it eats away everything.
Movement replacement.
Oh, then it's movement replacement, definitely circuit replacement.
Yeah.
It completely eats
Often
the contact
ruins
away.
The dials it gets through if it's like a big deal.
Right.
I mean, and that in and of itself, I mean, it's a chemical that is destroying the internal parts of your watch. You know? It's like, then you can't be so cross at science because the thing is, that is just how it works. You know, it's a metal that's coming in contact with these chemicals and it's eating away at it.
Right.
And everything else, never mind like that. I mean, gaskets, things like that, I'm sure that gets affected by something like battery corrosion.
The gasket, everything.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
I mean,
every gets eaten
that's
away
not
by
just
battery.
saying,
no.
oh, well, quickly pop that gear
your
out
dial.
and put another one.
Your dial
that's
gets
what I was saying. The
completely
dial
killed.
gets destroyed.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you've actually just taken the watch and thrown it in the bin.
Yeah.
Apart from the external shell.
Yeah.
Which is why you have such a thing as a module replacement.
Yeah.
Especially on a quartz watch.
And as we're talking now, I'm not getting into the science of this either, but there is the other. So you have your Citizens. And you also have your Swiss brands, but they have discontinued them mostly now. And those are, Seiko as well bought out what they call the kinetic watch. Now the kinetic watch worked on the same principle as an automatic rotor that turned. But instead of turning, going through its reverser wheels and its ratchet driving wheels, charging a mainspring, it's charging a capacitor.
Or capacitors, yes.
Which is the same as a battery, but it can be recharged and go flat.
Yeah.
It's a storage.
Yeah.
So what it was actually going, the old bicycles that used to have a dynamo on your front wheel, and as you cycled, this little dynamo will be pressing against the tire, and as it turns, your front light used to go up, and as you get slower,
it dims and it goes out.
My 1963 Vespa
works
does exactly the same.
Yes,
I have to build up speed to be able to use the hooter.
Yeah,
and it's the same principle. So what happens there is the rotor rotates it. It stores the electricity in a capacitor, and then the capacitor gives out again. And these things can carry on for years and years and years. But the rate, your consumption, and everything like that is still the same. Never ever change a capacitor with a battery. Can't work. It's not designed to do that. And I do believe the Swiss ones have now been discontinued. And I'm not sure about the Japanese ones, but
So that's good, you know. And maybe in wrapping up, you can share your last thought now. But I was thinking, you know, for our next chat, we're talking about the C's in watchmaking, and this was now chronometry, or the chronometer standard and certification, which is also a C, by the way. Maybe something called a chronograph. Now, this is such a unused function, I think, in modern watchmaking, but it served such a fundamental purpose. And as soon as you use terminology like chronograph, unless you're a watch enthusiast or fanatic, if you see buttons on the side of the watch, you are not going to guess the word chronograph. You're going to think, oh, they're buttons that maybe do something. Firstly, they do something, and they serve a stopwatch function,
Right.
which is what a chronograph is.
Right.
In simple terms, stopwatch. So
Correct.
I'm thinking for our next, we should get into that.
Perfect. And I'll touch on a little bit more of the accuracy. And the reason why there's an appeal to that, it's because you're adding complications to your already, you have your, so just to go back a little bit to the mechanical watch. So a lot of people think 6 seconds a day plus 6 seconds a day. You know, that's almost like we're talking. It's so inaccurate. It's almost like caveman sort of language.
It's
Primitive. But if you take, we've got 86,400 seconds every single day every single day.
You just take 6 from
6. That
At
is
most.
99.998% accuracy. And it's a
Mechanical.
mechanical friction, gravity,
not solitary
operated
piece.
device.
It's not a wall clock.
No.
So
you're wearing it. You're dancing with it. And another thing, please don't play golf with a mechanical watch. But anyway, we can touch on that.
Unless it's one of those Richard Moore ones that they've recently
which
brought out for the tennis players that's got the
with
movement.
a shock absorber inside it.
Yeah.
But still, I'm like,
don't know if I'd want to play with a few $1 million on my wrist like that. But
no, but yeah, and it's so you're adding to these mechanically fine driven mechanical devices. You're putting complications on top of, and that is the appeal. So chronometry and chronograph definitely we'll chat about, and yeah.
Any last thoughts on chronometer certifications and standards in the testing of watches and their movements?
A chronometer standard?
Well, as in the chronometry standards now, the COSC certification. Sorry, any
correct.
last thoughts on that?
No, I'm just glad it's still around. I think we do need policing in this. Otherwise, it becomes a beanfest. Anybody can do anything and call themselves anything. So I do feel that it's good to have these official centres available, and it just makes sure that
it's got that authenticity added to your timepiece, I guess, because I think, people, why bother? Well, this is another thing maybe to justify the price you spend on things. People think it's, well, how much could this piece of steel with a few gears really cost? And we touched on a bit of that previously with research development, all these spares, all these costs. But this is part of that cost, and it's built into the price you pay. And that being all these tests at the factories, and you don't know about half of the stuff as the buyer that's going on there is going on through there, and yet they're sending those movements off for testing, it comes back, etc. And I think that builds it into that price, which ultimately gives it, at least it should give it some justification.
Absolutely. And yes, and we'll touch on next time as well is the chronometer plus with the Rattrapant. We can talk about it as well, and how that all came to pass.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
Brilliant.